Welcome to this deep dive today. We're going way beyond the textbook and into the life of John Dalton. You might know him for colorblindness.
Yes. But his impact on science is so much bigger than that.
So much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a 19th century scientist. And
exactly. And, his work with Daltonism, like you said, it's really just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Wow.
We're going to be using excerpts from his biography on biography.com today.
Okay.
And also some deeper dives from Wikipedia to try to uncover some really surprising facts about Dalton's life, his groundbreaking atomic theory, and how all of his super meticulous observations actually changed the way that we understand chemistry today.
Sounds like we're about to uncover a hidden scientific giant.
Absolutely. Dalton's story is really one of those classic stories about how a thirst for knowledge can lead to just incredible discoveries.
Okay, so let's start with his early life.
Sure.
Dalton was born in 1766 to a Quaker family in England. Not exactly your typical picture of a revolutionary scientist, right?
Right. And not only that, but both he and his brother were colorblind.
No.
So, just imagine how that might have shaped his understanding of the world.
Yeah. That must have made him question things at a very young age.
Oh, for sure.
And it wasn't just colorblindness that set him apart.
Right.
His family was really poor. So despite a yearning for education, he had to start working at age 10.
Yeah. It's a huge contrast to kind of like the privileged upbringing of so many other scientists of that era. So it really speaks to Dalton's inherent drive to learn and excel.
A self-made scholar.
Yeah.
He started his teaching career at just 12 years old.
12. Could you imagine a 12-year-old teaching you algebra?
I can't even imagine.
Wild.
What's even more remarkable is that by 19, he was the principal at a Quaker boarding school in Kendall. Talk about a fast-track career.
Really a fast track.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what his students thought. But this early teaching experience, I think it was crucial. It really shows his ability to grasp complex concepts and then explain them clearly to other people, which would later become, really essential for communicating his scientific ideas.
Exactly. It's like he was training for his future role as a scientific pioneer.
Totally.
His move to Manchester was a turning point. He became a tutor at New College, which was his gateway into a more formal scientific community.
And this is where things start to get really interesting. He joined the Manchester Literary and Philosophical Society, and, most importantly, that gave him access to a lab, which for a self-taught scientist like Dalton was a total game changer.
That must have been like opening a treasure chest full of possibilities after years of just making observations without any proper scientific tools.
Totally. Think about it. He had been spending his life making these meticulous observations, but all of a sudden he actually has the tools to take his inquiries to a whole new level.
And he dove right in with his lifelong passion, meteorology. He kept these detailed weather logs for 57 years. That's almost as impressive as his scientific breakthroughs.
Yeah, that's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of dedication to observation really highlights a core principle of his scientific method, right?
Mm-hmm.
Observe, observe, observe.
It makes you realize that groundbreaking discoveries can come from something as simple as paying really close attention to the world around us.
Totally.
But let's talk about Dalton's colorblindness research.
Yes.
He correctly theorized that it was hereditary based on his own family's experience.
Which was huge. That was a huge leap forward. And now we know, of course, that colorblindness is caused by, missing or malfunctioning photoreceptors in the eye.
Right.
These photoreceptors detect different wavelengths of light, which is what we perceive as color.
And here's a fascinating detail. His preserved eyeball was examined in 1995, confirming that he had deuteranopia, a type of red-green color blindness.
It's amazing that we can still learn from his experiences almost 2 centuries later.
I know. He even described how red appeared to him. He said that red appeared as a shade or defect of light. It's a really poignant observation, I think, that reveals how deeply his colorblindness affected his perception.
And it makes him really relatable, too, right? It humanizes this brilliant mind by showing us his personal struggle with something that most people just take for granted.
And he didn't let it limit him. He turned it into a scientific inquiry.
He did.
This really highlights his resilience and curiosity.
For sure.
Now, let's move on to another area where Dalton really challenged conventional thinking, his work with gases.
Yes.
Back then, a lot of scientists believed that air was a chemical solvent. But Dalton, through his experiments, he saw it differently.
Totally.
So instead of this like mysterious substance, he envisioned air as a mechanical system of individual particles.
Yes, exactly. And that led him to develop what we now know as Dalton's law of partial pressures.
Okay.
Which states that, okay, the total pressure of a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the pressures that each gas would exert if it were alone.
Okay. So that might sound a little abstract. So let's bring it down to earth. Imagine you're scuba diving.
Okay.
Dalton's law is actually essential for understanding how the pressure of different gases in your tank changes at different depths, which is, crucial for a diver's safety.
It's a great example of how a scientific principle that was discovered by just like observing the weather can have these real-world applications in a totally different field.
So from observing weather patterns to unraveling the mysteries of air, Dalton's curiosity just led him to some really significant discoveries. And all of this was setting the stage for his biggest breakthrough, his atomic theory.
Yeah, this is where things get really, really exciting. Dalton's atomic theory, it wasn't just a new discovery. It was like a complete paradigm shift in how we understand the very building blocks of the universe.
This is what he's most famous for.
Yeah.
Get ready for a scientific revolution.
So Dalton proposed that all matter is made up of these tiny indivisible particles called atoms, right? And he argued that atoms of the same element, they're identical in weight and properties.
Okay.
Whereas atoms of different elements have different weights, different properties.
That might seem obvious to us now, but back then, that was revolutionary.
It was completely revolutionary. His theory transformed chemistry from like alchemy into a modern science.
And here's the remarkable part.
Yeah.
Much of his theory still holds true today. That's the sign of a truly groundbreaking idea.
It really is.
Its ability to withstand the test of time.
Totally.
He even created a table of atomic weights, which became an essential tool for chemists. It's mind-boggling to think about the painstaking work that went into calculating those weights with the limited tools that he had.
Yeah. It really speaks volumes about his dedication to accuracy and his ability to extrapolate these really broad principles from like quite limited data. Dalton was truly ahead of his time.
But his thirst for knowledge didn't stop there. He was interested in everything, from rain, dew, and springs to heat, light, and even grammar.
He was a true Renaissance man of science. Like, his scientific mind wasn't confined to just one discipline. He really saw the world through a lens of inquiry and wanted to understand, like, all of it.
It makes you wonder what he could have achieved with today's technology.
Oh, absolutely. But, even with the limited tools of his time, Dalton achieved something truly extraordinary.
One thing that really stands out to me is his focus on experimentation.
Yes.
He wasn't just a theorist. He was in the lab getting his hands dirty.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's where his personality as a scientist really shines through. Like, he was fiercely independent, sometimes even distrusting the findings of other scientists.
He was so committed to his own, meticulous methods that he sometimes dismissed the work of others, even when they were using more advanced equipment.
Right.
Can you imagine a scientist today being like, I don't trust your fancy instruments. I'll stick to my simple setup.
I know. It shows, his confidence in his own abilities and just his unwavering belief in the power of careful observation.
Despite this, sometimes stubborn streak, his work did gain recognition. In fact, he achieved scientific fame even before publishing his atomic theory.
Which is incredible. He was already this respected scientist, before he even presented the work that would ultimately, define his legacy.
He was even invited to give lectures at the prestigious Royal Institution in London.
He was, although, according to some accounts, his lectures were a little bit on the dry side. Not everyone's a born showman, even brilliant scientists, right?
Yeah, it makes him more relatable. This, genius who might have been a little awkward in front of a crowd. He was brilliant, but still human.
It definitely adds another dimension to this, scientific legend.
Yeah.
And speaking of humility, Dalton was initially really reluctant to accept public recognition. He even declined membership in the Royal Society at first.
It's hard to imagine turning down such an honor.
I know.
But he was a devout Quaker. And this, modesty likely stemmed from his beliefs.
Yeah. It's a testament to his character. He wasn't driven by fame or recognition, but by this genuine desire to understand the natural world.
Of course, eventually his groundbreaking work couldn't be ignored. He was awarded a government pension, and he was even elected to the French Academy of Sciences.
Even a modest Quaker like Dalton couldn't escape the impact of his discoveries. It's a reminder that true brilliance transcends cultural and personal boundaries.
So we've covered Dalton's early life, His fascination with meteorology, his research on color blindness, and his groundbreaking work on gases and the atomic theory. It's been quite a journey so far.
And there's more to come. Dalton's story doesn't end there.
Stay with us as we continue our deep dive into the life and work of this really extraordinary scientist, John Dalton. We'll uncover more about his later years and the lasting legacy he left behind. As we kind of delve deeper into Dalton's later years, you'll see that his dedication to science never wavered, even when faced with some pretty tough personal challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Despite suffering several strokes later in life, which, affected his speech and his movement, his mind stayed sharp, incredibly sharp. He continued to work and contribute to the scientific community. It's really a testament to his resilience.
Yeah, his death in 1844 was a huge loss to the scientific world. But the outpouring of respect and admiration from the public was remarkable. I mean, 40,000 people attended his funeral. Can you imagine a scientist today getting that kind of send-off?
It's hard to fathom, right? I mean, it really speaks to the impact he had, not just on science, but on society as a whole. As people recognize the profound significance of his work and the doors that it opened for, future generations.
Yeah, it's inspiring to think that scientific discovery was so highly valued by the public back then.
Yeah, it speaks to a time when scientific progress was seen as this beacon of hope for a better future.
Definitely. Speaking of shaping the future, Dalton's work had a lasting impact on chemistry and science in general. Even with its few inaccuracies, his atomic theory laid the foundation for countless scientific breakthroughs.
It's true. Those inaccuracies were really just a product of the limitations of his time.
Right. But the core concepts were revolutionary. I mean, think about it. How could we understand modern chemistry without the concept of atoms?
Yeah, it'd be like trying to build a house without bricks. You need those fundamental building blocks.
Exactly. Dalton's theory provided those essential building blocks, both literally and figuratively. It's hard to overstate the significance of his contribution. It really paved the way for countless discoveries from the periodic table to our understanding of how molecules interact.
And let's not forget his work on gases. Particularly Dalton's law of partial pressures, which still has practical applications today in fields like medicine and engineering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how a seemingly abstract scientific principle can have a very tangible real-world impact. Dalton's insights into the behavior of gases are still relevant today, centuries later. Think about how we understand the atmosphere, or even something as commonplace as the fizz in a soda bottle. It all goes back to Dalton's law. It's amazing how his work continues to be relevant in our modern world. But I want to kind of circle back to something we talked about earlier, Dalton's commitment to his own experimental methods, even when they were less sophisticated than what other scientists were using at the time.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating aspect of his personality, that independent streak, that almost stubborn adherence to his own way of doing things.
Yeah, some people might see that as a flaw, but I think it also highlights a really crucial element of scientific progress, the importance of trusting your own observations and being willing to challenge conventional wisdom.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. You need to respect existing knowledge, but you also have to be open to new ideas and new methods. And Dalton definitely leaned towards independence. But that same independence allowed him to see the world differently and to question assumptions that everyone else just took for granted.
And without that willingness to challenge the status quo, who knows if you would have made those groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah.
So what can we learn from John Dalton, the colorblind Quaker who revolutionized chemistry? What's the takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, I think Dalton's life offers several really powerful lessons. Firstly, it shows us that scientific curiosity can blossom anywhere, regardless of your background or your circumstances. His humble beginnings and his lack of formal training didn't stop him from pursuing his passions and making these groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah, it's a reminder that science isn't limited to elite institutions or fancy labs. It's about asking questions, making observations, and seeking to understand the world around us. Anyone can be a scientist.
Exactly. And secondly, Dalton's story highlights the importance of persistence and dedication. He spent decades meticulously collecting weather data, tirelessly experimenting with gases, and refining his atomic theory. His success wasn't some sudden eureka moment. It was the culmination of years of dedicated effort.
It reminds us that true scientific progress often involves, slow, painstaking work. There's no magic shortcut. It's all about putting in the time and the effort.
Absolutely. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, Dalton teaches us the value of independent thinking. While his stubbornness might have had its drawbacks, his willingness to challenge established ideas and to trust his own observations was absolutely crucial to his success.
It's a reminder that innovation often comes from those who see things differently, who question the assumptions that everybody else takes for granted. Sometimes you need to trust your gut and go against the grain.
So as we kind of conclude our deep dive into the life and work of John Dalton, we're left with this legacy of groundbreaking discoveries, these enduring principles, and these inspiring lessons for anyone who seeks to understand the world around us. His story shows that a single individual driven by curiosity and armed with meticulous observation can truly change the course of scientific history.
And that's an incredibly empowering message. You don't need to be a genius or have access to, the best resources to make a difference. All you need is a curious mind and the determination to pursue knowledge.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to ponder. We've seen how revolutionary Dalton's atomic theory was back in the 19th century, but how would it be received today?
That's a great question. Think about it. What new questions or challenges would his work spark in our modern world? What would he think about the fields his work made possible, like nanotechnology, where scientists are manipulating individual atoms to create, new materials and technologies?
Imagine showing Dalton a modern smartphone or a computer chip, devices built upon the very principles that he helped establish. It'd be mind-blowing for him to see how far science has come since his time.
And who knows? Maybe he'd even have some fresh insights that we've overlooked. After all, he wasn't afraid to think outside the box.
Exactly. So as we celebrate Dalton's incredible contributions, let's also embrace his spirit of inquiry, that relentless pursuit of knowledge that pushed the boundaries of science. There's always more to discover, more questions to ask, and maybe you'll be the one to make the next groundbreaking scientific discovery.
It's all about keeping that spark of curiosity alive and never stopping asking why.
That's what drives scientific progress and leads to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
We hope this deep dive into the life of John Dalton has inspired you to learn more about him and to look at the world around you with a renewed sense of wonder.
Remember, there's always something new to discover. Just like Dalton, you have the potential to make a difference. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Yeah, it really is mind-boggling to think about. Like, if we could show him a smartphone or a computer chip.
I know.
Just these everyday objects that are built on the principles that he helped establish.
It'd be like taking a time traveler back to show them the future, right?
Totally. And who knows, maybe he'd even have some insights that we've missed with our modern perspective.
Oh, for sure.
He wasn't afraid to think outside the box.
That's what I love about him. Sometimes, a fresh perspective is all it takes to really spark a new breakthrough. So as we celebrate Dalton's incredible contributions to science, let's also try to embrace his spirit of inquiry, that relentless pursuit of knowledge that really pushed the boundaries of what was possible.
Yeah, that insatiable curiosity is what drives scientific progress.
Yeah.
It's about asking why and seeking to understand the world around us.
And it's not just about scientific breakthroughs. That same curiosity can be applied to any field or endeavor. It's really about being a lifelong learner and embracing that joy of discovery.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of John Dalton, we hope you're leaving with a renewed sense of wonder and inspiration.
Yeah, remember, Dalton's story is proof that anyone can make a difference. You don't need fancy equipment or a prestigious degree. All you need is a curious mind and the determination to explore.
We encourage you to continue learning about John Dalton and to see the world around you through the lens of a scientist. Observe, question, and never stop exploring.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one making groundbreaking discoveries, inspiring future generations of scientists and thinkers.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating life of John Dalton. Until next time, keep asking questions and keep diving deep.